Invoicing is actually one of the more easy to use modules, I'd say, in the system. But we'll touch on it here just so you get a feel for what's available. The invoice itself actually gets created when a delivery is shipped. So I actually just created one, so I'll go into it from that way. But or no, let's just say we want to create a brand new invoice. So I have this delivery that's ready to ship. Once I'm ready to actually ship it, I'll just choose a date shipped today, and notice it creates the invoice for me, and it gives me a link into that invoice if I want. I don't have to click that link. The other way to get to invoices is from the finances menu and invoicing, and then that plus button allows you to add a new one. But that's probably an important distinction to make here. So there's two different types of invoices in VISCO. You have sales invoices, which is like the one I just created, where you're shipping out product. Those, like I said, get created automatically when a delivery ships. The other kind of invoice is a memo invoice, and that's where if you are billing the customer for something other than product, so it has no impact on your inventory, you just want to bill them, create an invoice for freight, for example, or something like that, you can go in there and create a memo invoice by clicking on the plus button here. But really, for sales invoices, which are going to be the majority of the invoices, those all get created by the actual shipping of a delivery. So let's go into this sales invoice and see the information that can be managed here. So first off, the system is automatically assigning an invoice number. It shows us who the customer is. It assumes the date shipped as the invoice date. You don't have to keep it that way. If you wanted to change the invoice date, you can, but it assumes that we're going to be using the date that we shipped. The customer PO number will come in automatically from the sales order if it's been entered. You have the invoice total and the currency here, and then the invoice status. So when invoices get created initially, by default, they have this pending status. So that means that the invoice exists in VISCO only, and it can be modified. When you're ready to push the invoice to the accounting system, you're going to change that status to posted. And that can be done on an invoice by invoice basis individually, or you have the ability to post invoices in batches from the admin area. Batch invoice post allows you to batch post many invoices all at the same time. You can link into the invoice document itself. That's here. I'll click on this. It's going to load the invoice document. And initially, at least sort of the default setting is that invoices load initially in Excel, and then when they get emailed as a PDF. You don't have to do that. You can have it go direct to PDF if you prefer that. And the invoice document template itself can be modified as well. So that's the document. Here this says invoice type. In this case, it's a sales invoice. Like I said, the other type would be memo invoices. There's also sales returns, which are if a customer is returning goods to you and you want to credit them, that's another invoice type, and we'll go through that in a separate video, how to do the returns. But this would be specifically for sales invoices. Other information is just some comment that you want to put on the invoice document that's going to appear in a memo box on the invoice. And then you have the ability to cancel from here too. Now, you can only cancel invoices if they have not been posted. In other words, if they have this pending status. Once the invoice gets pushed to the accounting system, you no longer have the option to cancel the invoice. If you wanted to back out of that, you'd have to do it through a sales return. Address information all pre-fills automatically based on the sales order. You can modify it here on the invoice if you choose to. The line details are filling in based on the quantity that you shipped and the price that was on the sales order. Again, you have the ability to edit these on the invoice itself. Now, there's controls around this. So you can choose whether or not you actually want people to be able to edit quantities and pricing on invoicing or not, where you can just lock that down and restrict that entirely and force the user to make those changes on the sales order instead. The venture detail, this is going to pre-fill automatically based on the venture that you're shipping from. So in other words, the system is is grabbing a specific lot when you're shipping out inventory. And this is sort of showing you exactly what lot and what venture this inventory was shipped from. You also have the ability to add miscellaneous charges. So if you want to charge the customer extra for any other thing, you could choose, say, a freight charge, for example, for an extra $300. And those can be mapped. Each of these miscellaneous charges have their own general ledger account mapping. So you can map them to separate sales accounts in the accounting system, as opposed to mapping them to like the default sales account that you would typically map product sales to. So that's really it in terms of the management of the invoicing. The one other thing I was going to mention is if you are doing a memo invoice, that would be, so similarly from the invoice section here, I'll click this plus button. And this is a manual creation of the sales invoice. I'm sorry, of the memo invoice. And you're filling in a lot of these details yourself, manually, like who the customer is, what the terms are, notes and things like that. And then you're going to choose a miscellaneous charge that what you're actually charging the customer for on the memo invoice.